try and get some perspective on how we got here. I understand it's not going to help the situation, but maybe if we understand a little bit better, it could make things a bit easier for us. So as a country, we're now into stage 6 blackouts. I'll give you 2 reasons that I suggest could be the reason for it. A lack of money for diesel and maintenance at Koeberg power station are among the causes this time round. Let's see if energy analyst Lungile Mashele agrees with me. Lungile, good morning to you. And it always seems every time I speak to either yourself, Lungile, or other energy experts, all of you as energy analysts and experts seem to know this is going to come, yet there's nothing we can do about it. Am I just being too negative?
So good morning, and you're absolutely right. One can track by the data that Eskom does provide where we're actually headed. Every single day they do provide what their utilization is in terms of the hydro pumped storage as well as gas. So you're basically able to track what is going to happen by the end of the week. Unfortunately, there's nothing anybody can say, and to send out warnings is neither here nor there, because this has been our reality for the last 15 or so years.
Let's talk about the big worry at the moment, this concern, this talk, this expectation. Tell me how realistic this is, Lungile, that we could go from stage 6 and somehow magically miss stage 7 and end up in stage 8. Stage 8 sounds like something from our nightmares. What is that? How bad a situation would that be for us?
So it is very realistic. That is a possibility. And in fact, this is why they had to implement stage 6 as of midday yesterday, because had they not done that, had they not preserved the diesel pump storage, if anything had happened during the evening peak, it would have likely most tipped us over to stage 7 or stage 8. What does this mean? Currently at stage 6, we're load shedding at anything between 10 to 12 hours a day. We will not have electricity. So anticipate that at stage 8, for about 12 to 14 hours a day, you will not have electricity. Now, I hate making this comparison, but if you look at what is happening in Zimbabwe currently, where they're off for 18, 19 hours a day, but theirs is continuous, it is not on a rotational basis. And the fact that I even need to find myself making this comparison is truly a testament to how bad things have gotten, not just at the utility, but in the country as a whole.
You actually led me very nicely into the situation in Zimbabwe, because I was going to ask you, as far as our northern neighbours are concerned, where would we compare? It's almost as though you read my mind, Lungile. So let me ask you this then, because I think you answered and actually, not even answered, you took us there so nicely in Zimbabwe. With Koeberg's Unit 1 now having gone offline, I think it was last night, around about 7, 8 o'clock last night, Koeberg 1 went off. Why has that gone off? Do you have any idea? And what kind of expectation do we have for load shedding going forward if we lose Koeberg Unit 1?
So we can certainly expect load shedding to basically stay at about stage 4 and at any moment even increase. Koeberg every year, December time, does go off for a refueling outage or maintenance. This is planned way in advance, and one of the key things is they did try to delay that particular outage, but the problem is the crew is already on site and they're overseas based, so now you're basically going to be paying for standing costs instead of just closing it down, let people operate and hope that it can get back up to where it needs to get to within a short space of time. This outage usually goes on for about 2 to 3 months. So hopefully by February, then it'll be fine. But it's not just Koeberg that is out. You also have Lungile, 3 units out there also, off because they need to fix the chimney. Let's also not forget that in October, we decommissioned Komati also. So it's a culmination of a number of different factors that have affected capacity ultimately.
And let me just ask you this as a last question, Lungile, before I say goodbye to you. Is there any expectation, any belief, any analysis when we talk about a complete collapse of the grid? If we go to stage 8, that's the highest stage I think we can go. I don't think we can, not on the apps that I use, I don't think we can go above stage 8. What's after stage 8?
So there's still many more stages we can possibly go through. When Eskom designed that stage 1 up to stage 8, this was in 2007, 2008 already, and they never imagined a day they would possibly get there. Perhaps we need to start talking about what stage 15, what stage 20 could possibly look like. It does not necessarily mean a complete blackout of the grid. It just means more hours of unavailable electricity. It means instead of 12 hours a day, which is what is currently happening, we might find ourselves getting to a stage of 20 hours a day without electricity. We would not be the first African country to go through this. Not that that's any comfort, but countries such as Zimbabwe are going through that now. We've had countries such as Ghana that have experienced that also. The difference between Ghana and ourselves is that Ghana experienced that for 3 years. They put an end to it. They got sufficient capacity. In fact, now they have what we call an overcapacity issue. Yeah. South Africa has been with this problem for 15 years with no end in sight.
Lungile, forgive me, if you don't mind, I'm going to take one more moment of your time. I've got a tweet now from @Swalu_ZA wanting me to ask you, Lungile, are we still exporting power out of South Africa to other countries, for example, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia? It's actually a good question. I didn't think of asking that. Do you know?
Yes, we definitely are. We have power purchase agreements with these countries, and some of them you cannot interrupt them. So they are uninterruptible power purchase agreements, and you have to honor those contracts, or else they can actually seek some kind of legal recourse. So you do have to honor those contracts, yes.
Let's say, for example, now I'm really being cheeky. Let's say, for example, we didn't honor those contracts. Obviously, there would be financial penalties. If those contracts were cut off from us sending power across our border, if we did that, would our lights in South Africa stay on? Would blackouts come to an end?
No, and this is why it really doesn't make sense for Eskom to cut them off completely. You are talking about 50 megawatts here, 100 megawatts there. It's not massive. South Africa on its own, we have about 50,000 megawatts installed, just Eskom on its own. You have another 7,000 odd megawatts installed just from the renewables. So when people are talking about 50 megawatts to Botswana, that is extremely tiny. And also, let's not forget, countries like Swaziland and Lesotho, for the most part, are entirely dependent on electricity coming in from Eskom. So ultimately, you would be disrupting those countries completely. They would come to a complete shutdown, and you cannot have that kind of regional instability.
Well, I appreciate your time and indulging me in those last two questions. Lungile, what a pleasure. Always good to speak to you. Energy analyst Lungile Mashele joining us here on eNCA this morning. Stage